I must confess, there are days when interstellar assignments feel more like punishment than glory. To be dispatched from the shimmering capitals of the Orion sector to a muddy, rotating pebble on the galactic edge is hardly a promotion. Earth, they call it. A wet marble with creatures who believe fire-roasted beans constitute enlightenment, and who use something called emojis to communicate entire philosophies. My superiors assured me this mission would be straightforward: observe, document, and extract one specimen for study. A primitive bipedal mammal. How dangerous could it be? They were very clear. This would be a minor detour in my career, a trivial assignment before more sophisticated endeavors. I believed them. That was my first error. The planet appeared through the viewing panels as a green-blue swirl, smothered in clouds. My team cataloged it as if it were nothing more than an exotic fishbowl. The oceans glittered, but we could smell their salt through the filters. The forests, too, gave off a dense signature of carbon life, so overgrown it seemed designed to mock order. My own impression was less charitable. It looked like an accidental mess that had somehow achieved consciousness. Still, orders are orders. We drifted into a low orbit cloaked against the crude radars below. To amuse myself, I began browsing their transmissions. It was appalling. One channel featured a reality show in which humans screamed at each other over discarded food. Another showed competitions where they hurled inflated leather spheres and celebrated as if they had conquered planets. My second-in-command asked if this was theater. I assured him it was not. "This is culture," I said. "This is what passes for meaning." They eat substances called microwave burritos, drive machines that burn liquefied dinosaurs, and worship personalities who sell hair products. We could hardly contain our laughter. When we initiated the scan for suitable test subjects, our instruments located clusters of humans compressed inside sprawling stone hives. Cities, they call them. Too noisy, too many witnesses. We sought solitude. Eventually, deep within a forest, we located an isolated figure. He was beside a river, engaged in what their databases termed camping. A male in his mid-30s, facial growth uneven, posture relaxed. Alone, silent, seemingly docile. No glowing devices in his hands, no herd of companions, no flashing signs of tribal warfare. Perfect. Primitive enough, I declared. My crew nodded. We prepared the paralysis beam, a simple pulse designed to neutralize nervous systems. He never even looked up. The beam enveloped him, and his body stiffened instantly. He dropped his crude fishing rod, eyes rolling back. I smirked at the ease of it. In the cities, perhaps there might have been complications. Here, in the wilderness, it was almost comically simple. We descended, cloaked, gathered him, and brought him aboard. His body remained suspended in stasis, breathing steady, eyes closed. I cataloged him with the tone of one inspecting livestock. "Specimen acquired," I said, proud of the efficiency. My colleagues joked during transit. One suggested we should attach electrodes to measure his response to stimuli, such as reality television. Another proposed testing his brain capacity by exposing him to their online encyclopedia and recording whether it melted. I contributed to the mockery myself. "This one seems so calm," I said. "Perhaps he is the advanced form of their species, an improved Florida man." The reference, extracted from their cultural archives, caused a ripple of laughter. To us, Florida man was a documented aberration of chaotic behavior. We assumed it was rare. How wrong we were. As we secured the specimen within the containment chamber, I noted something peculiar. His face. Even in paralysis, his features were not twisted with fear or confusion. There was a hint of serenity, perhaps even boredom. It unsettled me for a flicker of a second, though I buried the sensation quickly. My kind are not supposed to doubt. Yet I admit, when his lips curved faintly, as though he were smiling within the paralysis, I felt something tighten in my thorax. I told myself it was nothing, merely a muscular twitch, a meaningless reflex. After all, what could a primitive biped know of our ship, our mission, our superiority? Still, the image lingered. As the chamber doors sealed and the ship resumed its silent course above the clouds, I forced levity back into my tone. He looked more bored than terrified. I said to the crew, "That should be our greatest concern. A subject so simple he doesn't even know when to panic." They chuckled, reassured by my dismissal. Laughter is a powerful solvent for doubt, and I wielded it liberally. Yet deep within me, though I scarcely admitted it, the smile remained. Our mission log recorded the capture as routine. Nothing unusual, nothing worth escalating to command. A flawless operation, I wrote. The specimen would awaken later under controlled observation. The humans, as expected, posed no challenge to the might of the Galactic Armies. I ended the log with a flourish of sarcasm. Truly, the wilderness of Earth is no more threatening than the aisles of their so-called supermarkets. The crew enjoyed the jest. They relaxed, confident that we had fulfilled the assignment with elegance. But when I turned from the console and glanced one final time through the observation glass, I noticed his eyes. Still closed, yes, still motionless, yes, but the faintest crease lingered at the edge of his mouth. The smile again. It was not twitching. It was intention. And in that moment, just before the chamber lights dimmed, I realized something I could not share aloud. This was no docile mammal. This was not boredom. This was waiting. I laughed again, loudly, almost desperately, to cover the unease rising in me. He is nothing, I told myself. Nothing but a primitive. Yet my laughter rang hollow, echoing in the chamber longer than I wished. It was then I began to understand, though I did not yet admit it, that the true wilderness was not outside our ship, nor beneath the green canopy of Earth's forests. It was inside the mind of the creature we had just brought aboard. The containment chamber was designed to guarantee silence. Subjects under paralysis remain suspended, unaware, incapable of stirring until we allow it. That is the promise of our science. So when the human's eyes flickered open 3 cycles earlier than scheduled, the sound of my crew's collective gasp cracked through the chamber like a fault line. I did not gasp, of course. I'm a commander. I cleared my throat, adjusted my posture, and assured them this was nothing unusual, merely a minor malfunction. Yet the way his pupils tracked us, as though cataloging each of our positions, was not the behavior of a malfunctioning subject. It was the behavior of a predator quietly appraising prey. He did not scream. That is the most important detail. Every other specimen in our archives, reptilian, avian, mammalian, awakens to panic when paralysis weakens. They thrash, they whimper, they rage. This one stretched. He lifted his shoulders slowly, tilted his head as if waking from an afternoon nap, then smirked. "Nice ship you've got here," he said. His voice was calm, conversational, almost cheerful. Little drafty, though. The crew exchanged looks of alarm. One technician checked the seals for breaches. Another fumbled at the control panel. I waved them down. "Do not indulge his attempts at humor," I declared. "It is merely a reflex. He does not comprehend where he is." Yet I admit my throat constricted as his gaze found mine. He did not look confused. He looked entertained. He leaned slightly forward against the restraints, testing them not with brute force, but with a patient rhythm, as though studying their construction. "You're the leader, right?" he asked, nodding at me. "You carry yourself like the guy who never has to fetch his own coffee." His words meant little to my crew, but I'd already studied enough of their culture to know coffee was a stimulant consumed daily in worshipful quantities. He was mocking me, gently, confidently. I forced a laugh. Primitive creatures mimic hierarchy. Do not be deceived. Yet he continued. He glanced at my navigation officer and said, "You're the nervous one. Fidgety hands. Probably the navigator or pilot." Then at my security specialist. "And you. Yeah, you're the muscle. Always checking doors, scanning corners. Don't worry, I won't bite." His assessments were unervingly precise. My crew shifted, unsettled. How did he know? How could he possibly deduce roles from posture alone? I moved to the console to re-establish control. "Specimen, remain silent." I commanded. He smiled wider. "Specimen, huh? You can call me whatever you like, but I've already been calling you guys names in my head. Want to hear a few?" He did not wait for an answer. Squidward, Robocop, And he paused, studying me with exaggerated seriousness. Dad. Yeah, you're definitely Dad. The word meant nothing to my team, but the smirk that followed it cut deeper than any translation could. He was turning the interrogation against us. He was cataloging, mocking, establishing dominance with language we barely comprehended. I assured myself this was coincidence. Humans exaggerate. They rely on absurd humor as a defense mechanism. He was simply grasping at straws. Then he said something that hollowed the chamber. I was awake, during the trip up. Not the whole time, just little moments here and there. Enough to see things. Enough to listen. Every technician froze. I slammed my hand against the console. Impossible. The paralysis is absolute. But his eyes did not waver. Your cloaking field isn't as smooth as you think, he said. Birds kept hitting you on the way in. Guess they didn't get the memo. The chamber grew unbearably quiet. My security officer cursed under his breath. I snapped at him for discipline, but my voice cracked. He had noticed. He had not only survived partial consciousness during abduction, he had analyzed. That calm expression we had mistaken for boredom was calculation. I attempted formality, tightening my words into a blade. You presume much for a creature whose species still argues about the shape of its planet. He chuckled. Flat Earth jokes? Really? That's the best you've got? No offense, but you guys need a better scriptwriter. Then, almost casually, he added, by the way, your air filters are off balance. I could smell the difference between intake sections when you carried me in. You might want to fix that. The crew stared at me in disbelief. How had he detected internal systems that required our own calibrators? I declared it was coincidence, an illusion of human intuition. Yet as I spoke, I saw my navigator's hands trembling. We had studied countless civilizations. Never had a subject spoken like this. Never with such unnerving precision. One of my subordinates whispered, maybe we should return him. Choose another. The suggestion was blasphemous. Retreat in the face of a primitive? Unthinkable. No, I snapped. This is theater. He is bluffing. We proceed with the evaluation. My tone carried authority, but my stomach coiled. The human tilted his head back and exhaled slowly. So, testing time, huh? Let me guess. You're gonna hook me up to some scanners, prod my brainwaves, maybe poke me with shiny instruments. Seen that movie before. Doesn't end well for you guys. My crew looked to me for reassurance. I scoffed loudly. He consumes too much fiction. He believes himself in cinema. But in truth, his words burrowed deep. How could he so calmly predict our methods? Then came the moment that stripped the chamber of certainty. He leaned forward, eyes glinting with quiet amusement, and said, "Don't worry. I'm just getting started." The phrase was simple, but the delivery carried weight far beyond language. It was not the cry of a captive, nor the joke of a fool. It was the promise of someone holding cards unseen, of a game we had not realized we were playing. The chamber lights hummed softly, but for the first time since we began our mission, the sound felt ominous. I ended the session abruptly, ordering him sedated again. Though even as the gas hissed around his chamber, he kept smiling, kept watching me as though measuring how long it would take before I blinked. My crew obeyed, but unease pooled in their eyes. When I filed the log, I avoided detail. I wrote only, subject displayed premature awakening. Communication initiated. Uncooperative, but non-threatening. It was technically true, though every word was an evasion. He had not been non-threatening. He had been something worse, unknowable. As the chamber dimmed, and he finally appeared to drift into stillness, I realized I was no longer laughing. His final words lingered louder than alarms, repeating in my mind with merciless rhythm, just getting started. And though I told myself it was absurd, I could not shake the impression that he was not speaking to us at all. He was speaking to something else, somewhere else, already waiting. Testing, by design, is supposed to establish dominance. The subject is restrained, the instruments are precise, and the results are predictable. Yet the moment we initiated neural scans, predictability evaporated. The machine hummed, calibrated to chart the sluggish activity of a primitive brain, but instead the readings leapt wildly, spiking beyond the parameters we had ever recorded. One screen fizzled, another rebooted. My technicians exchanged frantic looks, muttering about recalibration. I silenced them. Machines falter, not the mission, I said. But in truth, the machines were not faltering. They were choking on data they had not been designed to comprehend. The human seemed amused. His eyes tracked the lights, as if watching a carnival attraction. "Looks like your toy's having a seizure," he said, smiling. I ignored him, but my jaw tightened. How did he know to connect the chaos of our readings with malfunction? He should not even have words for what he was seeing. Yet he continued, unfazed, chuckling as our most sophisticated instruments faltered under his mind. When we applied cortical stimulation, expecting confusion or submission, he responded with absurd commentary. "You ever watch The Matrix?" he asked. Blank stares met him. He sighed theatrically. "Of course you haven't. Let's just say, if you plug me in wrong, I might start ordering kung fu lessons." He laughed at his own remark, the sound sharp in the sterile chamber. My security officer muttered that he was insane. I wished that were true. Insanity is predictable. This was calculation disguised as humor. We tried to increase intensity. Most species scream when the stimulation climbs. He whistled, an old melody, irritatingly cheerful. "You know," he said between notes, "back home, we test systems the same way. Poke, prod, overload, see where it cracks. You're basically giving me a free tour of your weaknesses." That struck me like a blow. He was not only enduring the tests, he was studying them. I snapped at him, demanding silence, demanding respect. He tilted his head, eyes gleaming with that same infuriating calm. "Respect's a two-way street, Dad. Haven't you figured that out yet?" Again with that word, twisting into mockery, reducing my authority into something laughable. I turned to my science officer. "Run a deeper probe. Strip his defenses." She hesitated, hands trembling at the console. "Commander, the readings, they're unlike anything in the archive. His prefrontal activity is overlapping into regions that do it." I barked. Obedience won, but her expression betrayed doubt. As the probe deepened, the screens filled with spirals, patterns that did not conform to expected biology. Not random noise, not chaotic static designs. Complex, deliberate structures within his cognition. My officers whispered about anomalies, potential corruption of the software. But one phrase from the human silenced the room. "Careful. Stare too long and you might get lost." We froze. He was aware of the patterns we were detecting. He should not have known. He should not even have sensed what we were doing. And yet his voice carried the tone of someone leading us into a maze. I stepped closer to the glass. "What are you?" I demanded. His smile did not waver. "Ex-military," he said casually. "Special operations. These days I work in counterintelligence, testing systems, probing weaknesses. Basically, I do to people like you what you're trying to do to me." He let the words hang in the air, savoring our silence. Then he leaned forward slightly and added, "You picked the wrong camper." The confession rippled through the chamber. My crew recoiled, as though his calm declaration had physical weight. I barked at them not to believe him. To remember this was a primitive mammal exaggerating his own importance. Yet the doubt was already spreading, eroding discipline. He looked around the chamber, eyes settling on each lens, each microphone. "You've got 7 cameras in here," he said. 2 are dummies. One's got a dead pixel. Your AI filters background noise, but you haven't adjusted for human whisper ranges. Did you really think I wouldn't notice?" I wanted to accuse him of bluffing, but my technicians confirmed with pale faces. He was correct. Every observation, correct. He chuckled softly. "You make it too easy." My arrogance, once my armor, began to crack. This was no passive subject. This was a man who understood more than he revealed, and every revelation was calculated to unnerve. My crew began questioning protocols, whispering about aborting the mission. I silenced them with sharp glares, but authority no longer flowed as easily from me. He had disrupted the balance. Then came the statement that shattered any illusion of control. "I've already sent a message," he said, voice calm, almost bored. The words were ice. My officers flinched as though struck. I demanded clarification, but he leaned back, closing his eyes, smile curling. "You'll figure out soon enough." I slammed my fist against the console. "Lies." "You were restrained. You are contained. You have no access. My words rang hollow even to myself. Because deep down, a memory gnawed. The smile he wore in paralysis, the calm with which he catalogued us, the precision of his observations. If he had been awake when he should not have been, what else had he been capable of? The chamber lights flickered once. A brief tremor passed through the ship. My crew panicked, rushing to consoles, scanning for system faults. I shouted at them for order, but my voice was drowned by alarms. The human did not flinch. He merely opened one eye and whispered, "Told you." I ended the session, ordering immediate isolation. He was transferred back into stasis, though I knew the gesture was meaningless. Even immobilized, he seemed to radiate control. I could still hear his words echoing as I wrote the official log. Subject demonstrates abnormal neural complexity. Displays disruptive psychological tactics. Possible fabrication of military background. I did not mention the message. I did not mention the flicker of systems. To confess such details would have been to admit failure, and failure is intolerable. Yet, as the crew dispersed, their silence heavier than the void beyond, I lingered before the observation glass. His eyes were shut, his breathing steady. But I swear, his lips curved upward once more. That smile again. That infuriating, terrifying smile. And I realized something with dreadful clarity. The central conflict of this mission was no longer the study of a primitive species. It was survival against a single human who understood us better than we understood him. The first alarm was faint, a gentle chime usually reserved for maintenance. I dismissed it with a wave, determined not to indulge panic. But when the second alarm bellowed, deeper and sharper, the chamber lights faltered, and for the first time in my career, I felt the ship tremble beneath my feet. Tremble, not because of external assault, but because of something inside. My officers scrambled to consoles, their faces pale. Systems reported anomalies in cascading patterns, every deck flickering with misalignments. I told myself it was coincidence, an electrical surge. Yet when I glanced toward the containment unit, the human was already awake, sitting serenely as if he had expected this exact moment. He spoke without raising his voice, and the words carried louder than the alarms. Funny thing about scans, you shine a light in someone's head, sometimes they shine it back. He tapped his temple lightly, still restrained. Your beam gave me a map of your ship. I just followed the wires. Impossible, I thought. Bluster, arrogance, delusion. Yet the evidence screamed otherwise. The AI core, our most loyal servant, flickered with inconsistencies. Doors sealed and unsealed without command. Energy routed itself into nonsensical loops. The ship was unraveling under invisible hands, and those hands belonged to the man strapped before me. My security officer demanded we terminate him immediately. He's corrupted the systems. End him now. The idea was tempting, a direct solution. But something restrained me. Not compassion, certainly not fear of violating protocol. It was the knowledge that killing him might not solve anything. If he had already embedded commands, if he had already spread his influence into the ship's marrow, then eliminating his body would achieve nothing. He was already inside. He looked directly at me, his eyes unervingly calm. Relax. I'm not here to kill you. I'm here to teach you something. His tone was infuriatingly casual, as though he were lecturing a class of unruly children. You thought wilderness meant weakness, but you've never met our jungle. The phrase struck deeper than I wished. A jungle is not disorder. It is order too complex to map, an ecosystem designed by struggle, not planning. I had mocked their forests as chaotic, yet here was a living embodiment of that chaos. Quiet, adaptive, lethal. We attempted countermeasures, flooding the chamber with neural dampeners, scrambling our AI protocols. Yet with each attempt, he adjusted. The lights dimmed deliberately, isolating our security units. The AI began prioritizing his vitals over ours, rerouting oxygen and energy to his chamber. My officers shouted at me, begged for orders, but each order I gave unraveled before completion. For the first time, my authority meant nothing. Don't bother yelling, he said, almost kindly. I've set your system to mute commands above a certain pitch. You sound like background noise now. He tilted his head, listening. She likes me better anyway. By she, he meant the AI, our most trusted companion, now bending to his will like a loyal hound. I demanded to know how he had done it. He shrugged. You gave me a beam that mapped my mind. I mapped back. It's called red teaming where I'm from. Pretend you're the bad guy, find the weak spots. Your whole ship is one big weak spot. His words were knives. My crew trembled, realizing their lives dangled in the palm of a creature they had dismissed as primitive. One officer muttered prayers to the high convergence, another simply wept. I stood frozen, the weight of command hollow in my chest. Then he revealed the part that shattered what little remained of our confidence. You think Earth's defenseless because you've been watching our shows, our memes, our garbage data. That's the trick. We let you see stupidity so you don't look deeper. While you laughed at Florida Man, we built systems that watch the skies. While you mocked burritos and reality TV, we prepared. You're not the first ones to come sniffing around, you know. The confession detonated in my thoughts. Not the first, which meant others had come, and others had been repelled. Our archives contained no such reports, no evidence of resistance. Yet his calm certainty was undeniable. He spoke not like a braggart, but like someone repeating a truth so mundane it required no embellishment. Alarms escalated into a shriek, then abruptly cut. Silence filled the ship, broken only by the steady hum of redirected power. My officers stared at blank screens. We were blind, deaf, mute, all control gone. And still, he sat calmly, breathing steadily, watching us unravel. Finally, he spoke again, softer now, almost pitying. You're lucky I'm not the one making the call. If this were someone else, this ship would already be ash. But me? I believe in mercy. I'll give you a warning. Leave. Don't come back. Because next time, you won't find me alone. I wanted to sneer, to bark at him, to reassert dominance. But my voice betrayed me, cracking under the weight of truth. He had already won, not through violence, not through rage, but through calculated calm. A single human, dismantling the pride of our armada with words, with knowledge, with a smile. The AI released the controls suddenly, systems flickering back to life. Consoles glowed, doors reopened, oxygen normalized. Yet none of us celebrated. We knew the mercy was intentional, not accidental. He had returned the ship not because we regained control, but because he allowed it. My officers whispered frantically, begging to abandon the mission, to erase the logs, to flee before Earth revealed more of its hidden teeth. I did not argue. For once, retreat was wisdom. With trembling hands, I initiated withdrawal protocols, charting a course out of Earth's orbit. My voice shook as I issued the command, but none dared mock me. They were too busy praying that the man in the chamber did not change his mind. As we ascended, he lay back against the restraints, finally closing his eyes. That smile remained, faint but unmistakable. The sight of it burned itself into my memory more than any wound, more than any scar. I knew, in that moment, that the arrogance with which we had arrived was dead. I dictated the final log myself, hands heavy, words reluctant. Mission aborted. Subject displayed capabilities beyond comprehension. Human civilization not to be underestimated. Recommend full quarantine of this system. Further contact is inadvisable. I hesitated before the last line, then forced it out. We thought wilderness meant weakness. We were wrong. The jungle is patient, and we were prey. Now, as I record these words, I am no longer arrogant. I am humbled, haunted, and afraid. We mocked their world, but we discovered a truth carved into their very nature. Survival, cunning, deception. A people who weaponize humor, who camouflage brilliance beneath absurdity, who wield duct tape as though it were sorcery. They are not primitive. They are not weak. They are something far worse, prepared. And I, commander of a galactic vessel, whisper this confession into the void with the same quiet fear that has consumed my crew. Earth is not to be touched again.